Over the last couple of decades, we have become a divided nation. A nation where canceling someone for their opinion or what they have to say has become an agenda for some. A nation at the brink of economic collapse, overshadowed by the creation of nearly $4 trillion placed into circulation since March of 2020. While the next percentage is debatable, the US government has also created approximately 24% of the total money supply within the last few years. There is also another $2 trillion in relief funds yet to be dispersed, all while Americans experience some of the highest inflation numbers of the last 40 years. So how can America tackle the nearly $30 trillion US debt created by our government in the last decade? How can the average American get ahead and survive financially while enduring the skyrocketing cost of living? What will our lives be like when inflation continues and the ever-looming economic bubble explodes into one of the greatest setbacks since the Great Depression? These serious questions require a certain deal of acknowledgement and research in order to properly prepare for what is inevitably coming. I do understand this is somewhat of a pessimistic view, and it seems very grave, but these are the facts. Massive government debt, rising food and living costs, packaged with a stock market inflated by massive government stimulus, is a recipe for disaster. As a nation, we cannot keep heading down this path and printing money. This leads to periods of rising prices. Everyday necessities become unaffordable for ordinary citizens, and our wages we earn essentially become worthless. We are seeing this happen right before our very own eyes. Printing more money increases the money supply. This in turn increases the demand for goods, and consumers have access to more money. With the demand of goods higher and the supply staying the same, companies respond by increasing prices. In this model, printing more money will ultimately cause inflation. You may ask, why can't companies increase the supply of products to keep up with the demand? Well, it takes time and resources to increase the supply of products, especially food and living essentials. It takes an increased workforce, more materials, and sometimes years to catch the supply up to an artificial demand based off an increased money supply. Our government can simply create more money into the system with some legislation and a few keystrokes on the computer. Increasing the inventory of certain products can take significantly longer, often years, to catch up to the artificially created demand. I ask myself all the time, what can I do as an American to protect myself and my family from an economic collapse? What can I do if the government keeps printing money, causing inflation to continue on its path towards these unaffordable prices of essential goods? Layered in a relatively new and fast-growing technology known as the blockchain lies the answer to the previous questions. How as Americans can we protect ourselves from an increased cost of living? How can we secure our future with record high inflation? And how America as a whole can battle the $30 trillion debt crisis? I strongly believe the blockchain, which consists of cryptocurrencies, non-fungible tokens, and smart contracts, is our light at the end of the tunnel. Naysayers and skeptics will call it internet money, or a Ponzi scheme of sorts. Web3, which encompasses the blockchain, cryptocurrency, and smart contracts, has been called fake decentralization. Anytime there is a new and disruptive technology, there will be a backlash for many reasons. People inherently do not like change. They fear it quite often because either they have a limited understanding of the technology or they understand just what it can do to a system they are already heavily invested in. Yes, blockchain is a disruptive technology, but it must drive a new competitive advantage over the current financial and economic system. Bitcoin is the first decentralized cryptocurrency that uses a peer-to-peer technology, like the blockchain, to operate with no institutional authority such as a bank or government. The network carries out issuing the capped supply of 21 million and managing transactions collectively. The best part about Bitcoin is its open source nature. Nobody owns or controls Bitcoin, and everyone can take part in it. Through many of its unique properties, Bitcoin has many uses that could not be covered by any previous payment system. To bring it all together, the blockchain allows us to transfer value throughout the internet and across the world by guaranteeing no one can change or copy our money at any time. Do you remember the times before the internet? We needed to ask permission from a television station or news reporter before we could get our opinion out to our peers and others interested in what we had to say. The internet came along and let anyone share an idea immediately across platforms without having to ask permission from gatekeepers in the media. We are in a time known as the information revolution, and everything around us is changing at a rapid pace. So how is the innovation of blockchain changing how we store value in things like cryptocurrencies, commodities, and artwork? The blockchain has been dubbed the Internet of Value. It allows us to exchange value or money between individuals without asking permission from gatekeepers such as banks, lending institutions, and the government. This is known as permissionless technology. Many have said that the ability to have an open exchange of value between people that is permissionless is as big, if not bigger, than the birth of the internet itself. Whether that open exchange of value is money, artwork, collectibles, or contracts, the elimination of a centralized authority or intermediary involved in the transaction is paramount to our collective freedom. So I ask you this: can you imagine how scary this is for the banks, lending institutions, and governments themselves? When talking about the blockchain ledger, one must understand that it is free to use and anyone can add transactions to its database. The database is long and growing, and it can never be deleted. The ledger will reject things like incorrect passwords or insufficient funds, and verification is continuous as more transactions arrive on the ledger. It is virtually indestructible, as all copies across the world would have to be destroyed. It also allows platforms to operate without the need for central control. This is done through strings of computers connecting together like a network in an open source format. Tech-savvy proponents of this innovation are working on transparent algorithms that are decentralized through math equations. There is no monopoly within the transfer of value between individuals on the blockchain, nor through a cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin. Today, Bitcoin's market cap is around 800 billion USD, and this is just the beginning. Like any new technology or innovation where value is stored, the market can be extremely volatile at times. These new markets of innovation can draw speculators and day traders, which can be extremely risky and move the price of Bitcoin several thousands a day in either direction. Many seasoned investors who see value in Bitcoin take a long-term approach and plan to hold their investment for several years, if not a decade or more. The blockchain allows all platforms to operate without a central authority or central point of control like a gatekeeper. Platforms before the blockchain, like social networks, keep all the profit from our attention on such sites and at times attempt to censor our freedom of speech. Centralized news networks push their own agenda and propaganda, often making it difficult to uncover the truth behind almost anything these days. The blockchain has the ability to eliminate these gatekeepers and give our social profile back to us as individuals. It has the ability to allow us our own opinions on news and world events, rather than instilling a form of censorship to push a specific agenda. Look, I know these are bold statements. I also understand that the blockchain is relatively new. However, I feel that the blockchain is part of our human evolution. It helps to eliminate doubt we have when we transact and transfer value across the internet and the world. Right now, institutions are the infrastructure that allow us to function as a society transferring value. Formal institutions like banks had been used for decades as an intermediary to transfer value and money. With the birth of the internet, we moved these formal institutions online and built platforms such as Venmo and Zelle. These became faster, but still acted as intermediaries to facilitate our economic activity. These institutions are used as a tool to get rid of any doubt we may have so we can transfer value online as a society. Today, we are entering an age where through revolutionary innovation, we have the need to trade and transfer value on a global level, bringing the world together as one global marketplace. Many have touted this as the greatest movement of all time. So how is the blockchain changing the world? Well, for the first time in history, we can depend less on political institutions such as banks, corporations, and the government to transfer our value and money to others. Because now, we can do it with the technology on our own from the palm of our hand in our very own crypto wallet. The blockchain is a decentralized database that keeps and protects a number of different assets and transactions across a peer-to-peer network. It is essentially an open source public registry of individual transactions, as well as ownership rights to many different assets on a ledger. Transactions are secured through cryptography, and throughout the ledger's existence, the transaction history and blocks of data are locked on the ledger in a cryptographically secured manner. This cryptographically secured manner becomes what is known as an immutable or unchangeable record of all the transactions on that specific network. The records are replicated on every single computer that uses the network, and this is why it is virtually indestructible. Every computer across the world where there is a copy of the blocks and transactions would have to all be destroyed for the ledger to become obsolete, making this scenario almost guaranteed never to happen. The ledger of a blockchain can store all types of assets along with the location, ownership, and custodianship of said assets. Whether it's digital cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin, title of ownership of intellectual property, certificates, contracts, or even personal identifiable information, the ability of the blockchain ledger is limitless. The blockchain is completely transparent and viewable by anyone through its open source nature. As tokens or smart contracts move along the blockchain, we can see its utility as well as any increase in value along the way. Smart contracts on the blockchain allow us to write binding contracts between two parties or businesses, enabling us to make sure the details of the contract are executed without an intermediary to the contract, such as an attorney, bank, or government entity. These intermediaries can often slow down the contractual process with bureaucracy and red tape. Smart contracts eliminate any doubt between both parties holding up their end of the agreement, allowing us to collaborate faster and make progress more efficiently for the better of society and the good of the world. It is important to understand that this technology is in its infancy. We are going to see a great deal of this technology be tested and ultimately fail prior to exposing all of its use cases, many of which have yet to be discovered. So please be careful when investing in new blockchain technologies. Always do your own research and never risk more than you are willing to lose. When you do your research, look at technologies and platforms that have a significant amount of utility. Which ones have the best use cases? Look at projects that will solve a problem for society and better individual lives among all else. There are many tech-savvy individuals working on blockchain projects as we speak. Some of them will fail, but some of them will ultimately change the world we live in today. It's very exciting times, and I believe this is the greatest time to be alive in all of human history. Blockchain is giving the people an economic opportunity through the exchange of value and currency without the need to depend on institutions or governments that can devalue our current monetary system on a whim, year after year. Yes, governments are important for a functioning democracy such as ours, and are needed to function for the people. As we see in the Declaration of Independence, our country was founded on the truth that all men and women are created equal. America was also founded on the basis that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What happens when a fiscally irresponsible government engages in monetary policy, such as increased quantitative easing? That is, injecting too much new money into the system, leading to much higher inflation in the long term. How much harder is it for the average American to live in the pursuit of happiness when the cost of food, gas, and essential goods is skyrocketing to the highest level in 40 years? The blockchain puts everyone on an equal playing field. It gives the people and our government the ability to strengthen our current monetary system, ultimately strengthening the US dollar from its current debt ceiling. With the advent of stablecoins and cross-border payment tokens, functioning through on-demand liquidity platforms, the blockchain is moving in the right direction, allowing the ability to work side by side with the US dollar, strengthening our economy and our lives. As I said before, like any innovation, such as the blockchain and cryptocurrency, there are skeptics and naysayers alike. The global elites have told us that terrorists will use cryptocurrency, as will drug cartels, along with other uses such as money laundering and tax evasion. There are bad actors everywhere in life. The same thing was said when the internet was first rolled out in the mid-1990s. But over those years, we developed platforms to combat the bad actors. Here is the thing. The global elites, the banks, some in our government, yes, they are afraid that terrorists and drug cartels will use the blockchain and cryptocurrency. But the truth is, they are more afraid that one day, all of us will use it. Thank you for listening, and remember to please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell for all notifications, and stay tuned for our next video on RantFish Crypto TV.